Missing school may not only affect your child's education, it can also be a crime in the city of San Francisco. Joining us to explain how truancy impacts the entire family is San Francisco District Attorney Kamala Harris. It is great to have you with us.
What an honor
to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, may I call you Kamala?
Absolutely. You must. You must.
Ms. DA? Or let's define truancy. It must mean more than just missing a few days from school.
Absolutely right. We are not talking about hooky and playing hooky, and frankly, we all did, okay? What we're talking about is chronic school absenteeism, and the focus for me really has been the elementary and middle school students. We're talking about children, very young children, who have missed up to 50, 60 days of a 180-day school year. Wow. A very, very real issue, and something much more than just the occasional lapse. And we're talking, by the way, about unexcused absences.
Right.
So do their parents even know that they're missing so much school?
Well, when you're talking about a 7- and 8-year-old, I would think yes.
My gosh, now, if you're talking about that many days being missed from school, how many kids are we talking about here? What percentage of the total school population?
I'm glad you asked. So, last year in the San Francisco public school system, we had over 5,500 students who are designated as habitually and chronically truant, and of that number, 2,400 are elementary school students.
Oh my gosh, so how is it that the parents are allowing this to happen? Or what's going on here?
Well, I think to some extent there is some level of neglect, but here's the thing. The most important issue for me really is that we get these kids into school. The goal is not to prosecute parents, it's to get these children to go to school.
Right.
And, you know, I'll share with you that my first grade teacher, Mrs. Frances Wilson, attended my law school graduation. And I know that the benefit that a public education and an education gives is the difference between having a life that is at least productive, if not successful, or a life that causes one to end up being a victim of crime or behind bars. Nationally, 75% of criminals in the criminal justice system have been habitually or chronically truant. I did an assessment of the homicide victims in San Francisco over the last 5 years who were under the age of 25 when they were killed. 94% high school dropouts. Wow. There's a direct connection between education and crime.
So then obviously chronic truancy can lead to
chronic truancy is going to lead to, at best, a kid who is probably marginal, especially if they're a chronic truant in elementary school, marginal at best in middle school, and probably the high school dropout, which means the person who later is on the corner doing things that annoy us at best and probably a crime at worst, and the person who ends up very likely in the criminal justice system their entire life.
So what are you doing?
So what I am doing is this. We have a collaboration with the school district, Carlos Garcia, great superintendent of schools, and what we've done is we started an initiative a couple of years ago that involved me assigning prosecutors to go and meet with the teacher when they met with the parent, and so the prosecutor's there and the parent says, who's that mean-looking person? And they say, well, that's the prosecutor, because if we can't fix this problem, they may end up prosecuting you. But by the way we want to fix the problem is we've got all these services for you. And we've got a hotline if you need help, 701-STAY. 415-701-STAY. Call it. We want to help you, because the most that we want is that this child just goes to school. So we started a mediation process, and that's been quite successful. We've seen in some schools a 50% increase in attendance. The other thing that we did is I sent a letter on my letterhead out to every parent in the public school system last year at the beginning of the year, this year at the beginning of the year. And it's been fantastic, because when the principal would otherwise call the parent and say, you know, Miss Smith, Johnny's not in class, would you return my call? Call went unanswered. Now, principal calls and says, Miss Smith, you know, Johnny's not in class, and by the way, that DA Kamala Harris said she might prosecute you and send you to jail, and the call gets returned.
Well, so literally prosecution means like what? It's a felony misdemeanor? You could go to jail, fines?
Initially, we're talking about an infraction, and we give basically the parent the option of, instead of actually prosecuting the case, if they comply with services, and the attendance record of the child improves, then we're prepared to look the other way and be done with the case. If it doesn't improve, and if we see the kid back in the system, then the penalty goes up and would likely result in that parent being sent to jail.
Wow.
But again, the goal is not to send the parent to jail.
Exactly.
It's to get the child
to
in school.
Exactly. And I'll bet other municipalities are going to follow your lead.
Yes, and I think it's just a smart way to look at what we can do in terms of intervention and prevention, instead of having to deal with it on the back end with a more serious crime.
You don't want Kamala Harris showing up at your door. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you do.
On the front end or the back end.
But not for that reason. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you.